Thank you so much for your time once again. Real quickly, we'll go straight to the panel session. The panelists, we've got Chibuzo Anthony Efobi, Director of Financial Policy and Regulation, okay, at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Just to let you know, there's a stopwatch. We'll end less than 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. Hanu Agoje, founder and CEO of Patricia, is unavoidably absent. Mohammed Ibrahim Jega, co-founder, Domineum Blockchain Solutions Ltd. Big round of applause for him. Bukola Olutayo, Managing Director, Stellas Bank. Williams-Edem, Fintech professional and growth expert. Big round of applause. Bola Ajomale, former MD, NASD PLC. And William Phelps, Investment Manager, Adaverse. Big round of applause for them as they come on stage. Pleasure to have you all. I understand that our rep from CBN will join virtually. You have the microphones there on the seat, so I think this is the full microphone. Yeah, you have yours? Yes, I have mine.
Okay. If you want to stream this event, just go to TechNext on YouTube and Facebook in case you want to share the links for the live streaming of today's event. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all once again. I think it's best to start with Mr. Chibuzo, that is virtual, FOB, Director of Financial Policy Regulation, Central Bank of Nigeria, since we're talking about fintech regulation here. Can we get a feed that shows him? Can he say something? Do we have him? Okay, while we try to battle that, I'd like Mohammed Ibrahim Jega, co-founder, Domineum Blockchain Solutions, to give us insights on how regulation has shaped his market in Nigeria. Could you have done more with all the regulation? What are we even regulating?
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you.
Most importantly, we understand technology has as an enabler, has been able to diversify and disrupt different industry on different verticals. For the subject matter fintech, we've seen how fintech is moving beyond borders, activating and disrupting space. And we feel with regulations, we could be able to do more, whereby setting up parameters for businesses and also having all inclusiveness. In my industry, because my background was in the fintech space, I happened to co-found a payment company called Vokpay in the early 2010. But now I'm focusing on blockchain. I'm still an owner of Vokpay, but my focus now since 2017 has been in the blockchain space. I co-founded a blockchain company providing blockchain as a service. What are we doing in the space is to educate, engage, and let the people understand the different opportunities that blockchain has in the markets. Because when you hear blockchain, a lot of people think about crypto. There's a lot of might around blockchain. And fortunately enough, we just finished an event last week in Abuja, which one of the biggest blockchain conference hosted by my company. What did we achieve was to bring in governments, we brought in academia, and we brought in business. It has never happened before. Bringing 3 different industry players together to talk about blockchain, to talk about the opportunities in the blockchain space, to showcase what people are building on blockchain. Also, we listened to the government to tell us what do they have or not, because government has been doing a lot in the blockchain space, but because the businesses have not been able to bring them closer to them, they don't know. And that's why I commend the organizers of this event, the GAT Summit, very critical, because when you bring business and government together, you help enable, because government's an enabler. It helps regulate. Why CBN did that action about putting a hammer on crypto businesses is because of lack of information, lack of education. If we did the other way side, engage the CBN, go to them, discuss with them, share information with them, tell them what are the different opportunities in the space. So in the blockchain space, things are moving very well. And part of my business model, actually, my company is around B2G and B2B. That is, we are optimizing and increasing efficiency of every government organization and businesses using blockchain. Because one, blockchain is the most trusted, is the most transparent, and is the most secured platform in the world that you can use now.
Okay. Do we have the feed from the rep of the CBN? Do we have the feed? Huh? He joined and he dropped. Okay, maybe before he joins us again, so that we can also take some of these matters. We'll like Bukola Olutayo, Managing Director, Stellas Bank, to just share with us the challenges you face in this space, regulations and the likes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The challenges with regulation is actually based on, just as the rep of Lagos State government actually talked about, based on balancing two things: the intention of the regulators to protect the citizens, and also to ensure that they support technology. But there's always this lag. What I mean by lag is that we found out that there's always this challenge in being able to balance between protecting the citizens and as well ensuring the full stream of technology. So we found a lot of regulators who are very traditional in the way they regulate, because they are focused on one thing, which is to protect the citizen. Now, regulation should protect the citizen and as well foster technology, because technology will also help the country to actually develop too. Technology is actually taking over the space. The society is changing. The economy is changing. Economy is now depending on technology. The traditional economy, we can all see that it is actually, not enough to be able to, grow the country. And what can now help the economy is technology. So because the regulation is not actually fostering technology advancement, we found out that there is a little bit of, the government is bending towards more of protection than being able to balance.
Okay. As Stellar Banks, can you say some unique challenges to you that you faced with them?
Okay. As Stellas Bank, we decided to go digital. There is a digital banking, there is neo banking. Neo banking is complete online banking. There is no structure. You don't go into the bank at all. And neo banking gained its antecedent of growth during the COVID-19, especially in the Western country. Nobody wants to go out, and then you still want to do your transaction. And the thing is that industry is what about $47 billion, and it's recently just started or gained its antecedent between maybe in the 20s, maybe from 2018, 2019, 2020, but 2020 it grew rapidly. So what we decided to do is, okay, let's go digital. The brick and mortar, the traditional banking is not the thing any longer. So we want to go digital. We are going digital, which means all the things that we're going to be doing is now going to be online. Customer service is online. You want to request for your debit card online. Delivery will be made to your home. You don't need to come. So this system is still alien to the regulators. And when they see some of these things, what we hear is that CBN doesn't issue digital banking. what we issue is normal banking license. So there is still a bit of a clash. And, you know, one of the major challenges of traditional regulation is a pacing challenge in the sense that technology is running so fast, but regulation is slow, you know, doing a lot to catch up and is unable to catch up because, you know, from experience, regulation takes about 5 to 20 years to change and technology changes almost every day. So
Okay.
the regulation is finding it difficult to actually change. You know, when you bring up an innovation that is a bit alien, you find a little bit of restriction. And so one of the ways that we've been trying to do this is to ensure that there's collaboration. We have meetings, we talk about it. We try to, you know, advise the regulator to ensure that regulation is more adaptive now, you know, because it should be more responsive and iterative.
Okay.
And it should be outcome based. You know, what do we want to achieve? Are we able to achieve it? I think the Lagos State rep was also talking about regulatory sandbox. If some of these things you don't understand, we can create a test environment. You know, let's look at some parameters. Let's test it there. Let's see if we are violating any of the laws or any of the policies. So if we violate, then you'll be able to call us back. So those are some of the things that we are discussing with the regulators. So the major issue is the fact that there's a lot of innovation coming up, and the regulators are, you know, finding it slow to catch up with that innovation.
Thank you so much. Great point. Have we still be able to connect to the CBN rep? Because there are lots of questions that he needs to answer. Work on it. Okay, we're not still connected. I'd like Bola Ajomale, former MD, NASD PLC, to please wade in, you know, on this. And you know, before we come up here, we're talking about some insights and probably things we can learn from Malaysia and the likes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And this was not a technology issue. Before I do say anything, I would like to say a big thank you to Mr. Alake. I was nodding until my neck hurt with some of the things you were saying, and then I realized that quite a lot of what you're saying, I agreed with a lot of the layout, but the things that Lagos State are doing, I had absolutely no idea that so much was going on. And I somehow think that we should put that information out there a lot more, because it's encouraging, but not only encouraging, it actually gives people a focus of where to go, which is part of what I was going to say. I just completed a tenure of starting up running an OTC market, a stock exchange that runs parallel to the Nigerian stock exchange. We have 40 companies, 45 companies trading on the platform. It's worth over $1 trillion. We never once used the trading floor. We were always technology driven. Challenges were all over the place. But before then, to the conversation we were having, and I'll get back to what we're doing and where we're headed. But I was chatting with a young man a few days ago, and he was saying that he runs a company that does virtual wallets, and he is in 16 countries. This is a Nigerian. I met him in Lagos, and he's in 16 countries. I said, "Are you in Nigeria?" And he goes, "Well, he's just about to set up in Nigeria." I said, "Why? How come you didn't start from here?" And he says, 9 years ago when he wanted to start, it was too difficult. And so he went to another country outside Nigeria, started then. He's now in 16 African countries, and he's now being invited to come and set up in Nigeria. And that says a lot about how easy it is for you to set up a business in this country, and something that we need to address from the regulator, from the government, even from the general environment side. We really do need to continue to look at the ease of doing business, the ease of setting up businesses, and the sustainability of businesses in this country. If you had made your plans and your budgets in January, I am sure you're looking at a totally different picture right now. If you made your plans as of end of first quarter, you're looking at a totally different picture towards the end of this year. So again, we need to start creating that environment where businesses can start off, plan, put their processes in place, put their agreements in place, and know that a lot of things will run smoothly. And so when you're speaking of the infrastructure that's being set up in Lagos State, it's really encouraging and commendable. So for us, we are well, I say we, but I completed my tenure a few weeks back. But what we were doing is we were a self-regulatory organization. We were also a regulator of public companies, and we were regulated by the Securities and Exchange Council. So we're Securities and Exchange Commission. So we're in the middle. We were a regulator, but we're also being regulated. And we had a very strong interest in the digital world. We recently signed an agreement with a Canadian blockchain company that is already running digital exchanges. We did a pilot run last year. At the end of a successful pilot run, we were ready to launch. And so we went to our regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we said, we've done this, these are the results, we've engaged in conversation, we want to open a digital exchange. And they said, you can't. There are no rules. And we said, okay. And then the rules came out this year, and we find out that there's a certain restriction in the rules that's going to delay our starting. In addition, is the question of whether all things crypto, anything that is in the virtual space, is an untouchable according to the CBN, or whether some are allowed or not. So there's that conflict already between even our regulators. Some say it's untouchable, some say if it is a security, then it is tradable. And so you need to go into the which are allowed, which are not allowed. Is there an apex regulator somewhere or not? Third problem. Again, Mr. Alake spoke about, he mentioned some numbers. I will not say those numbers are wrong, but I would say those numbers probably underestimate the volume of what is going on and the amount of investment that's going on and being turned around. And the reason why it is likely to be inaccurate is because there's so much that's going on that the data is just not available. We're not creating that database where you can see and interrogate what size of activity is going on in this economy. Malaysia, for example, has set up a digital economy corporation. And what that corporation does is it coordinates everything to do with the digital space and make sure that it runs smoothly and make sure that it runs in a manner that encourages innovation and deliberately encourages it and creates the database for it as well. So people can actually look at the data, see the size. Why is data good? It shows how important you are. It shows whether you're struggling. It also even makes it easier for the regulator to say, to match regulatory cost to the size of the operation. So if you're a large player, you can match, you can decide that above this threshold, it needs to be regulated. Below this threshold, let them grow and see what happens. The last thing I'd say just before I stop is that, again, there's been a lot of mention about speed of coming up with new rules and new regulations. Absolutely. There's a lot of discussion that needs to go on. There's a lot of weighing and balancing. Would it restrict, constrain? Would it encourage? Would it omit? And this is a very rapid changing environment where, one technology today is obsolete tomorrow. So it's very difficult to create regulations that will capture all that activity and the speed of change. What may be more effective is always coming up with just guidelines, first of all. Just general guidelines, so that those guidelines set some certain parameters within which you can operate, and as time goes on, it can then be codified into regulation, rather than starting off with the regulation and then finding out that the regulation is either limited or just doesn't cover the whole spectrum, and then you have to go back and start trying to change the regulation. So I'll stop at that point.
I mean, thank you so much. Great insights there you just shared. And we keep seeing a common thread of collaboration, and that's why I would love the rep from the CBN to jump into this. Have we been able to get him? Huh? We can't get him, so I'll come to you, Jeffrey Edem, and I just want you to tie all of this together. The regulators are not running as fast as the businesses. There's a dichotomy there. How can we bridge the gap?
Well, I listened to a lot of what has been said, and very interesting points, and the Minister of Innovation as well, good point as well. I've been in the industry for over a decade. I've had to sit where people have come to say, Jeffrey, I want to build something and this is what I want to do. And there's always the conflict of, do I have the right ability, capacity, right to run that business? That's one side. I work with banks and the fintechs as well. But two things I'd like to state to wrap this together. If we look at the statistics, would we put the regulation and the regulators at a positive or at a negative? To be honest, a huge positive. And I'll give you some statistics. 7 years ago, if we look at the number of deployed terminals in the industry to now, huge progress. If you look at the number of startups in the fintech industry, a handful, today over 1,200. Is that not a positive? If you look at the microeconomics of the states and the fact that a simple but very effective policy was stated around the agency business and how that has evolved and enabled a lot of businesses at the micro level, is that not a positive? If we look at the innovation that we're finding in transport, in health, in food, in almost all sectors in Nigeria, it is the enablement of people to run online businesses that has made that possible. Now, we have a shuttle business that it's not just the typical 4 passengers, but you have a whole bus being able to be booked and pick up people. That is being encouraged by certain innovation that has been possible through the regulation. Now, I don't want to go into the statistics of the numbers of transactions that has been enabled and the billions of dollars that is bringing into the economy. So I would say a huge positive from the regulatory part.
Don't worry, don't talk. You can talk about it. The tax guys are not here.
Okay. But are there negatives? So to be honest, there are. And a few have been mentioned already. Speed. But more importantly, knowledge. People can see all the structures and the policies and the documents, but do they understand it? Can they interpret it? Do they know how that applies to the ideas and the innovations and the things that they would like to do? So what happens is I sit in a business meeting and I have all the stakeholders there and they're talking about a certain huge project. And it just appears that people know what the regulation is saying, but they don't know how to interpret it into what is applicable in business situations. And I think this is something that the regulators can improve on. And I hear you say there's a lot of things that Lagos State is doing, but people don't know. Even if they do know, how can they interpret this to become a viable business tool that I can use to innovate and do more things in this space? So what I've tasked myself to do in most times is before I go into any meeting, I try to read up, but not state this regulatory requirement, but interpret it in such a way that my fellow colleagues and stakeholders can take that knowledge away and find ways in which they can use that. And I think if we have a lot of improvement from interpreting those policies, we think that we've blown, we haven't. There's so much opportunities from just understanding these policies and how they can enable businesses. That for me would be where I see a lot of gaps that we can close.
So it still goes back to that word around the ecosystem of collaboration. William Phelps, investment manager at Adaverse. What's your take on this? How can we do this a whole lot better?
So I think that talking generally, regulation is a very loaded term, for better or for worse. And I think particularly in the fintech space, or just tech more generally in recent years, regulation has developed quite negative connotations. Because when we look at tech, particularly in this half of, well, after 2010, let's say, it's developed a very disruptive characteristic. It's there to disrupt traditional methods of doing things, to disrupt traditional flows of finance, being a notable example. And at the other end of the scale, almost, you have regulation, which is perhaps rightly allied with central governments, with central banks, those who I think many in the tech space see as representing that which disruptive technology is seeking to divert away from. But I would argue that this is very much a false dichotomy, and one which, you know, as has been touched on in everyone who's spoken this morning, is an unhelpful one. Because really, particularly in Nigeria, but I think globally as well, we see many recent innovations in tech regulation being incredibly helpful to the development of a dynamic and collaborative, to use the term again, ecosystem. So if we look at, for example, the startup bill, which is, you know, something that not only stakeholders but also all participants in the process should be both excited and proud of themselves for, there are huge opportunities presented for the development of a regulated but at the same time progressive tech ecosystem in Nigeria. So I think what it comes down to fundamentally is marrying previously opposite poles of regulation and innovation to create the sort of ecosystem which, say, for example, the startup bill is well on the way to doing. Now, for my sins, perhaps, when it comes to what I do, I mean, I'm very much involved in the investment side of things, and investing particularly in blockchain in Nigeria and in Africa, which perhaps stands as the greatest example of an industry which has been affected by these conversations and these dichotomies. But I think what we're seeing is very much a trajectory that is seeking to bring together, I think, regulators with innovators. So, I mean, as was very well mentioned earlier by the special advisor, blockchain, for example, offers great opportunities in a variety of sectors, but also at the same time many risks. And so I think in blockchain and more generally, as I've mentioned, it's a question of finding a middle ground as to how not only those risks can be mitigated, but those opportunities fully fleshed out. And I think that's not only the challenge, but also exciting area of potential that Nigeria and more general African and international tech experts, tech innovators have to face in years to come.
I mean, one thing we can all agree on is that we need to collaborate. But there's also another part to it where a lot of people see the regulators as punitive. They don't see them fighting for their own interests. And I think that's going to be my next layer of question. Do we have the CBN rep? Do we? No, not yet. So how can we collaborate when we have a clash of mindsets? Where an average business, if you ask them, still sees the regulator as punitive. It's how to collect bribes, how to feed their own pockets, how to destroy people's businesses. That's how they see the regulator. A clear example is what happened recently in the telecom sector. Yes, we saw the crisis in the telecom sector. So, I mean, I'd like to come to you first on this, and then maybe we just pass the microphone like we did the last time. How do we balance it out when our mindset, and that's why I really have loved for the CBN rep to be here, because two issues crept up. Number one is the case about getting licenses for digital banks. Number two is, you know, the crypto situation. Because, so I am also in tech, and I fell flat. And I'll tell you a quick story. 6 years ago, me and some of my partners wanted to set up a payment company. And the CBN 1 billion naira mark scared all of us. And that's how we left. We had very solid ideas as regards payments. But straight off the back then, they were telling us, oh, you have to put a paid guarantee of 1 billion. And this was at 2016. All those ideas out of the room. And nobody can tell us otherwise. We still feel to a large extent they've been punitive. I think you start first.
Thank you so much.
And please, let's ensure to get the CBN rep. Please. Please.
All right, thank you so much, Rufai. Very, very important. You know, we all agree here on the table that we need to be regulated. But most importantly, we need to understand regulators are no monsters. They are human beings like us. What they need is you need to engage them. We've listened carefully to what Lagos is doing and how they've set up parameters and enabling environment for businesses.
But people still think it's just English.
It's not, it's beyond that. I'm on this side. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in this space for almost 2 decades. We entrepreneurs are stubborn. And there's a nonchalant attitude of us even to document ourselves. If we take a census of all startups and tech entrepreneurs in Nigeria, most of them are not even registered with CAC. We don't like to be documented. We don't like to be documented. And a lot of them are doing business in 6 and 9 digits, but they don't want to be documented. So I'm just like cracking up, being the like devil's advocate now, telling you the other side, because I've connected with a lot of entrepreneurs in every state in Nigeria. I've listened carefully to them, and I've understood that, yes, we want to move, we want to do things, we want government to give us this and that, but are we together? Do we have a direction? What have we set up to? Because that regulation will give us an enabling environment, will set up parameters for us. We'll be able to help sanitize us to understand what it is. Now we're happy with the startup bill. I'm one of the core pushers of the project, and I'm happy that this is coming in to be able to create that enabling environment for us. NIDA is there. A lot of people don't even know what NIDA is doing. They fail to make time out of their busy time to go and educate themselves. What are those things government setting up for them? How will they benefit from those incentives? What is the low-hanging fruit? How can they leverage on all this information to help build up their businesses? Yes, we understand sometimes governments are too aggressive in terms of their approach, but I'm telling you this, if we engage them as a force, did you hear me, sir? If we engage them as a force to share with them what we are doing, how we want it to be done, and what we want from them, they'll be happy to work together with us.
I think he doesn't agree with you. He wants to differ because maybe he's been hit by.
Okay, I'd like to say this. There is a little bit of issue with the way things are being handled. And what I mean is that regulators can mean well for players. But how do you let the players know the reasons why you are doing some things? He talked about an idea now, and they asked him to drop a particular guarantee. Do they understand or do they know the reasons why they are asking them to do that? So there is this, as you said, there should be this collaboration. Now, regulators, players, they are not enemy. Regulators are supposed to be able to, or maybe the staff or the people who are representing the regulators should be able to explain to the players why some of these things are being done. You don't just, mention some things like as if it's a fiat or a command. You understand? We are in this thing together, and the goal of everybody is to ensure that this country gets better. By what you're doing, by what the regulators are doing, we are all contributing to the country.
Yeah.
So we are not supposed to see ourselves as enemy. Are they explaining the reasons behind these actions? And sometimes when policies are being made, are the players carried along? So, he talked about knowledge. The truth is that if you don't understand how that industry is being played, some of the policies that you're going to be dishing out is not going to be consistent with the way the things are being done there. And one major thing the regulators need to adapt now is to move away from the traditional regulation to, they need to adopt technology. There's something called RegTech, regulatory technology. Let them also begin to use technology. This will also increase the pace at which they also regulate. They will be able to understand. We will be able to understand. In fact, some of those things will be automated. I don't need to be at your office. You know, I should just be able to go to the platform that you've created for all those things, and we're able to do it. You should be able to regulate from your office via technology. You understand? Some of these things, if I understand that you understand me, understand my business, you are also into technology, I will feel it more comfortable. You understand? But when you are regulating me and you don't understand what I'm doing, I will feel like what you are doing, you understand, it's like you're just guessing, or you're just trying to do something. You know, my assumption would be that you just want to, you know, scare me off because you don't understand what I'm doing. You just want to pull me off. You know, I said I want to do this because you don't understand. You just want to ask me to get off my face. And that's the way sometimes some of these policies are being interpreted. So the players, they need to educate, they need to also explain to the players. They also need to also adopt a lot of technology in the approach at which they regulate. That's some of the things.
Thank you so much for that, great. Mr. Bola Ajomale, I'm sure you'd like to sound off on this. And have we gotten the CBN rep yet? So at least he gets a stab on this before we end.
So I'll start off by saying regulators are not, they're not punitive. I think, do we have CBN? No?
Do we have CBN? Okay, it's connected.
Okay. So first of all, regulators are not punitive. They're not there to tax the system. They're just a product of, I mean, if that happens, that's a product of the country as a whole. I mean, try going into police station to report a case, and you'll see how, you know, what kind of results you get. So really, the regulators are there to establish a certain kind of control. However, their DNA says you do it like this and you stick with this. Where we are is that everyone, I mean, if I set up a business in my garage, what I'm looking to do is solve, one, a new problem, two, do things differently, and three, get as much coverage as possible, as quickly as possible, and as cheaply as possible as well, and scale up from there. That's what my aim is as an entrepreneur. The regulator says you must register, first of all, and from there, you must comply with certain rules, requirements, governance standards, and so on, right? A startup normally has a bit of a problem in doing that. That's the first thing. Secondly, a lot of tech firms, a lot of the tech industry as a whole, naturally will be very, what's the word now? Fractious. They're tiny groups, tiny individuals all over the place. Right now, as we speak, I think there are about 3 or 4 other conferences going on in the country addressing technology. If you came together as one lobby group, as one group, the force behind it, again, that's why it's important for there to be data, for there to be information. If everyone comes together and say, we are the tech industry, whether we have a regulator or not, we are the tech industry, and we need to have these things in place, I'm sure somebody will listen, and it'll be a far more powerful voice than just the 6 of us up here saying it's necessary. I think we should create a movement where the whole tech industry comes together and establishes itself as a force, just like you have the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria of the past, the Bankers Associations, and so on. The tech industry needs to come together, form an association that is a strong lobby group and shows its importance to the country.
I mean, so it's time long overdue for sort of like a tech union of some sort, right? Jeffrey?
Yes, I like that, the tech union. That'll be interesting. But I think to add to his point as well, most times, because we are the business end of this whole economy, we often are explorers. We go out and find what's the new idea, what are the things going on in other parts of the world, probably faster than the regulators. But the gap is that we find all this knowledge, we don't come together to consolidate it and then approach the regulators to work with them to see how we can prepare the Nigerian market for the global economy, opportunities that we have identified. Some people do that, but I often see that they do that to promote the business that they want to do, not promote it in the sense of trying to structure Nigeria for that opportunity. So I think to improve our collaboration with the government and the regulators, when ideas are becoming apparent, the opportunities are becoming apparent, this tech union, like this initiative that you've spoken about, can come together, discuss it, document it, and find a way to interact with the regulators to put better structure for that opportunity to thrive in Nigeria. My second point on this as well would be, if we look around the room and we ask 90% of people, if you have any questions around any of the policies, who would you email or call at the regulatory office? How many people here do you think would know?
Show of hands. Who would you email?
And let's just do a quick poll. If you know who to email at the CBN office or any government office for policies about CBN, please raise your hand.
Wow. And the DG of NITA is just in front of you.
So this is the point I'm trying to make. We have hubs of information, hubs of professionals, hubs of everything, but not a lot of collaboration and integration. This is the players in the industry, and not one hand was raised. So I wish the CBN people were connected. One of the things I would like to ask is, put a customer service department in place so that people can call in to find out things. People can call in to get more information. People can call in to give ideas. People can call in to give updates on future tech and future opportunities that you can bring people together to create a framework for. This is the gap that can really exponentially improve our economy in tech.
I mean, makes a lot of sense, and that's why we need that tech union. Probably we'll like to draw NITA too to be members of that tech union, and draw every other regulatory body in tech. We'll quickly come to you, Mr. Phelps, just to share your insights on this. Then we go to the CBN. I hear we're connected. A lot of people are sending us questions in already. A lot of people have questions for the Lagos State government. You're thrilled. Please keep sending your questions. I'll get all of them here. Yeah, real quickly.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I agree with the general sentiment that actually regulation and legislation is a two-way street. And the idea, I think, of the tech industry grouping together and working with and approaching the regulators is a very important one, because I think the last thing that anyone in the tech industry wants is to be a passive body and receive red lines and sort of objective rulings at almost the whim of whatever body it might be, whether it's the CBN or the SEC, etc. So I think not only should the tech industry look to regulators to, well, I suppose lead, being the fact they are regulators, but they must also take a proactive approach, and I think be engaged in the process and commit themselves as stakeholders. And I also think, again, talking from an investment perspective, that actually investors, both domestically and internationally, in Nigeria need to take a similar approach, because one of the questions I often ask myself is, you know, Nigeria is leading the way as far as venture capital investment goes in Africa, and rightly so, but I think we can all agree that it can be doing a great deal more. And why is that not happening? And I think one of the reasons is because there hasn't necessarily been this engagement between members of the investment community and regulators, such that there are these gaps of knowledge. And with that, I think a lack of clarity as to not only what investors can seek to gain from projects in Nigeria, but also what they owe to projects in Nigeria as well. Because investment, much like innovation and indeed regulation, is a two-way street. And I think all of these areas overlap, and it's important to remember that overlap. And I think with, again, keyword collaboration, can only come development, and that's the point towards which we should be heading.
Right, thank you so much. So we finally have the CBN rep connected. Do we have him? Good. So if you can hear us, pleasure to have you. A lot of people think a lot of things about the CBN. They're talking about the CBN on understanding some of the deployments in tech, crypto. They want clarity on that. They also want clarity on digital banking licensing. They also said the regulators are punitive in general. So if you can answer all of these areas, let's talk about it. Can you hear us? Okay. Shall I repeat it? Did he hear me? So he can respond to it. Yeah. So, and please, you can also send in your questions. I understand we have some questions. David, I'll be waiting for those questions. If you can send some of them to me. Here we have a lot of questions for the Lagos State government. And the Lagos State government too, probably they'll be part of this, our tech union. You know, when they sit in, because we must have something. We must have sort of like a consultative forum where we meet, maybe a quarter every year, and we're constantly talking. You know, it's because we don't talk, that's why it looks as though we're doing things in silos. Maybe once every quarter or twice a year, where we all meet. And the good thing is that we're in tech. We don't have to collect ESTA code. We can sit virtually and communicate and talk and have these conferences. It's post-COVID. And we just have to keep talking because we need to make it work. Because if we don't crack it, we'll be denying ourselves of the numerous opportunities. I feel sad that people think oil could be the mainstay when there's tech there. When we get our acts together, tech will overtake oil in no time. And it will do it conveniently. Because tech can scale. Oil can scale. You can do multiple numbers overnight. But Nigeria, since the 1960s, have not been able to go beyond 2.53 million barrels per day. Yes, you can't do it. You can't do it. Because for you to get one well working, you have to invest billions in the sector. But in tech, you can go va-va-va-voom and iterate and do it quickly. Yes, we're waiting for the CBN rep, please. Okay, please, we'll like the DG just to come up while we try to set up the CBN rep. If we get some questions, please just come up, sir. The DG of NITDA, if you can just quickly give a quick insight in his keynote. Yeah, because of time. Okay, we will take your keynote because of time. Okay, or maybe you just confer with me. If it's a quick insight we can give or something. Why does Lagos State want to kill existing business? Okay, will there be avenue for investors in this summit? I know you guys do a lot of investment in blockchain. If you can just talk to them about investments and how they can reach you, if they have ideas in blockchain.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I guess talking in general, blockchain, very exciting, not only for the sector as a whole, but also for Nigeria in particular. I mean, I've been based in Lagos for about a month now. I'll be out here for another few months, and I've seen more energy in Nigeria than, well, anywhere else in Africa, or indeed, I think Europe, when it comes to blockchain. And as investors, the company I work at, Adaverse, are always looking to facilitate and foster that energy and that growth. So you can contact me very easily, William at Adaverse, ADAVRSE.co, or look us up online, Adaverse.co. And yeah, send over any applications or project ideas you have, and we can grow from there.
Thank you so much. So if you need investment in blockchain, Adverse is there. We'd like to call on the DG of NIT there.